Hello, everybody. My name is Isis Daniel, also known as the Millennial Somm, and we are here for my favorite day of the week, Tasting Thursday. All right. So, y'all already know what time it is. Let's go ahead and get into this jingle. So, if you know the song, you better sing along. Tasting Thursday. Get it? Tasting Thursday with your girl, the Millennial Somm. I am she is me, and we are here for another Tasting Thursday. And please do not forget, while the party is rolling, to hit that like, subscribe, and of course that notification bell, okay? Because every Thursday we are either tasting or sharing some iconic wine experiences, or like today, sitting down with some wine lovers behind wine. Now, one thing I want you guys to remember as you tune in every week, wine isn't just about what's in your glass. It's about the stories behind every sip and the people we share it with. Here we nurture the evolution of wine and share voice with our community that lives it, right? That being said, let's welcome today's guest and our representative of our wine sponsor, Wine Australia, Mark Davidson. How you doing today?
I am awesome. How could I not be okay with your charming song and,
Yeah.
vibrant smile? This is awesome.
So funny because listen, I made that jingle randomly. And I've been singing this jingle now for 5 years, which is insane to say. I can't believe like that much time has passed by. But I wrote that song in my living room. I was doing one of my tasting videos and it just came to me and it stuck. So,
I
Tasting
love it.
Thursday. But let's let the people know a little bit about who you are, right? Born in London and raised in Sydney, Mark has over 40 years of experience in hotel, restaurant, and wine business. During his 15 years as a sommelier, he was named Sommelier of the Year at Vancouver Wine Festival in 2001 and won the Spirited Industry Professional in 2014. Okay. Following his expertise as a somm, Mark has produced numerous wine education and restaurant etiquette courses. As a department head and instructor with the International Sommelier Guide, he was instrumental in the ongoing development of the curriculum and has taught classes in Vancouver, Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, and Las Vegas. Mark is an annual judge at the Somm International Wine Awards and has judged many other competitions in both Canada and the US. Since 2008, Mark has been the head of education department for Wine Australia in North America. He now lives in the US and has just released his book, The Wines of Australia.
There
All
it
right.
is.
So how are we feeling today? Give me the thoughts.
Awesome. Feel great. I'm thrilled to be on your show. I've watched you for a while, so this is great. I'm excited to be here. So I've been around a bit, but being in America, I moved to the US. I was in Canada for a long time. So most of my professional career actually wasn't in Australia. I did hotel school in Australia, and then I moved, traveled the world, met women, followed them to places.
Yeah.
Apparently that's what I do. And now I've landed in the US. And I've been here for about 10 years. I did work for a couple of years out of San Francisco with this job that I'm in now, but then I met an American woman when I was traveling and moved.
Aren't we the best?
Yeah. I just can't say no, apparently.
You can't say no because you're married. And if she hears this, you will be in trouble.
Exactly.
But I love it. What I love about the wine industry is that you really can come from all walks of life and be able to find your passion. You weren't like me or like that random wine guy who was a scientist. You actually grew up with a father who was in wine, right?
Yeah, I think probably because of that, I was exposed to wine, but because it's what my dad drank, I was like, nah, whatever. But we used to sneak bottles from under the house when I was a kid. I should be careful what I say here, teenager. Now, remember, you're allowed to drink at 18 in Australia.
It's okay. You already wrote it in the book.
18. Oh, did I? Okay, good. You got that.
You hear me? It's already in the book. You don't have to worry about it.
My dad was in the business. I didn't know that I was going to end up in the business, but I got into hospitality. I was in kitchens for the first part of my career, and then I went off to travel in Europe. So I started doing a bit more bartending because that was what was happening. I thought that's a better way to get around and make better money. And then I ended up in Canada, and I was doing a bartending course. And I was working at a bar as a bartender in a fine dining restaurant. and doing a wine class. And the owner of the restaurant used to let us buy really good bottles out of the cellar at the time. This is in the 80s. This is a long time ago. And I literally just got the wine. I literally just got it tattooed on my arm because 40 years ago, that
Yes,
wine changed my life.
I
And
love
I
it.
went and became a sommelier. And so it was about that just that in and you can get super geeky about it, but I think the geekiness is a bit of a personal pursuit. But I remember just going, what is this? Why? I won't even tell you the words I used when I tasted this morning, but what's
Mhm.
this? This is amazing. I'm going to follow a path in wine, and that's what took me down many different roads, but certainly helped me end up here today.
Yes, I love it. Oh my gosh. And the reason why I'm smiling so hard is because I also started in hospitality, right? I was a host, server, bartender, manager, did all of it. And while I was in that portion of my life during that time, I had a friend who visited Italy with her mom, and she came back and she said, Isis, I think that you look like you would drink wine. I was like, okay, I don't know what that means, but fine. Went to my local wine bar with Luna. I tell this story all the time now. And shout out to Luna because I love her anyway. But I just said I wanted some wine. She poured me a Cabernet Sauvignon. I was like, I don't know what this is, but I like it. And
Mhm.
from there, I mean, that wine wasn't any, I'm sure if I were to drink it now, I would like, it's okay, I'll pass. But at the time, it was something new and fresh. And I started bringing wine to all my family events, again, started studying, then making content. So I absolutely understand that natural journey to wine, right? But I want to get a little deeper.
Let's go.
Okay. So you are now traveling the world, you're following the women, you're discovering, right? But I want to know more about why, especially because you mentioned it in your book, why you maintain this love for Australian wines.
Oh, I think because that's what I grew up with, but it is actually fair to say for the first 20 years of my career, I always kept on top of what was going on in Australia, but it wasn't like a specialty necessarily. Excuse me, but I've always viewed our jobs as being sommeliers is that yeah, you have your passions, you have these things that you specialize in, but it's like doing general medicine. You've got to understand what's going on in the rest of the world. You've got to
Yes.
just try and keep sharp. And I think the thing that's uh, brought me back into Australia was that I'd kind of forgotten about a little bit of sort of, I feel like I'm paying attention. And then all of a sudden I went, wow, I've forgotten what's really going on here. And I think it's true of many areas of the world, but it's especially true of Australia now, is that there's so much to it and so much complexity and so much more than what the average person thinks, which you can say that about a few countries. People go, oh, I know South Africa, or I know Chile, but you kind of don't, because there's always more that underlies it. I feel like the famous countries of France and Italy, and people like, oh no, there's all sorts of different wines there. They don't know that about Australia, and that's the excitement for me, just to come back and go, actually, whoa, back up. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on here that the average person, that was why I wrote the list at the back of the book, but we can talk about that later.
Oh,
But
we
yeah,
will get to that for sure.
there's so much. You'd never be bored. I maintain that seriously, and I'm very much a European wine lover. My history was with France, and I think you can say the same of France. You can say the same of Italy. But if someone said to you, all you're allowed to do is drink Australian wine for the rest of your life, and go, cool, actually, there's plenty of every single wine style. I don't think you can say that about every country, but there are a cluster of countries where you can say that, and Australia is one of them for sure. And that's what keeps me engaged. And I like the way things are evolving because of how Australia's sort of been formed and how Australian attitudes resonate, and you feel it through the wines, is that they're always checking it, they're always doing stuff. And I like this evolution and revolution that's kind of going on in Australia, and I love that.
I want to go a little more deeper into that because I am a big advocate of culture and understanding that it's important for us as an industry to celebrate these subcultures of wine. There are many different pockets where we are thriving and enjoying wine and exploring and pushing the boundaries. So I'm American, as we all know.
I
And,
am too now. I'm an American
yes,
citizen now.
welcome. But I want to know, As someone who I've yet to go to Australia, that is absolutely on the list. But for someone who is not familiar with the culture, I know you've kind of touched on it, but bring us into the wine experience, the everyday life, the everyday drinker who enjoys wine. Tell us about that day of who they are and what
In
they do
Australia,
in
you mean?
Australia.
Yeah, Australians do drink per capita quite a lot of wine. We're not. I mean, there's the Aussie beer drink. It's like, oh, for sure, we do fairly well. I feel like beer drinking in Australia is sort of a national sport, but actually, wine culture has been fantastic and evolved in a really nice way in the sense that it is. We are. I feel like in Australia we're approaching almost a European sort of thing where wine is an everyday beverage, and I know that sounds sort of weird to some people, but to me, it's like wine is, you feel like you're in an AA meeting. Who drinks wine every day? Like me, I'm Mark. I drink wine every day.
It's
That's very
ridiculous.
much a European historical thing, and that's how I feel in Australia. So wherever you go, there's good quality, diverse selections of wine, and it's very much ingrained in the culture of Australia now, which it wasn't for sure. Even when I was young, going through hotel school, I would argue that wasn't the case. It was more about beer and maybe spirits and a few other things. But now, without a doubt, it's very much wine is very much part of Australian sort of life, and it's an important piece of the puzzle. So it's kind of cool, which we see in parts of the US, not all parts of the US, and parts of Canada and other parts I've lived in around the world. But I just feel like, oh yeah, no, it's part of the lifestyle, which I
Do
love.
you think that it's becoming more of a lifestyle because the quality has steadily improved, or do you believe that the winemakers, producers, the wine community itself is doing a better job of really that outreach, grassroots, bringing people in? What do you think is the key to the success?
A bit of everything. I feel like it's that, when I grew up in Australia, I went through hotel school in the 70s, and Australia food wise was a bit of a wasteland. It was old school British. So we didn't have this, but immigration and the influx of people from places like Vietnam, Cambodia, Southeast Asia, other parts of Southeast Asia, the European influences really elevated the food experience there. So it's hard to say what Australian food is because it's a mishmash of all sorts of things, but it's quite good. It's really good. And I think that infiltration wine has been brought along with that. Do we do a good job in connecting with people? I don't know if the wine industry does a great job overall connecting.
Like as a
with
whole.
Yeah, I think we can all do a better job, but I do think it's not wine in Australia, generally speaking, isn't considered a snooty sort of beverage. It's just, hey, it's there. There's lots of cool, fun, easy, accessible, easy drinking wines. And it's not, I don't feel like it's a difficult thing. I mean, we were the country that invented, we call them the goon bag, but the big bag and box thing, which used to be high quality wine in there, and it varies. But that accessibility of that was 2 liters, put it in the fridge, got a little tap on it. I think that was a heck of an innovation in its time, which made wine like, oh, it's in the fridge along with milk and bread and whatever else is in there. And so, yeah, where we go.
I am very controversial on these conversations because I'm team, what do we have to do to get the people to drink? If they're already drinking alcohol, I'm not having that weird conversation of trying to convince people who aren't interested. But for the people who are curious about wine, what can we do? If a box wine is the way to go, I say do it.
100.
Now, of course, I personally believe our people, the wine people. I think that it's just a lot of and I hate to use the word, but the gatekeeping, I think, is what has made it difficult for premium wines to be able to have some shine. Of course, I believe you're never, okay, I'm gonna say it. I don't think you'll never be able to reach a certain premium level in a can, obviously, or in a box, technically a bag, right? But I believe that accessibility is top priority. If you're going to the pool, if you're going to the beach, I think that just functionality, and a lot of young people are looking for quality wines that are able to go with their lifestyle. So it's interesting. I think we all have to do better as a whole.
I agree.
But I like what you were saying about food, because right when you were saying that, it makes me think about New York in particular, and of course other big foodie regions. But in New York, it's just a melting pot of so many different cultures. You go to one block, it's insane. I love it. But then you we look at the wine scene and we wonder, okay, so why does it go well? I do believe that it's the food scene that makes the wine life so vibrant. So I get that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Hmm.
I mean, New York's funny, isn't it? New York's sort of, you see it's quintessential US, but actually it isn't. New York is just New York. It's this a little island on its own that it's just this incredible melting pot, and I think that's true. It's just culturally speaking, there's access and there's the availability of wines to satisfy an incredibly diverse, cultural mix, and I love that. I love that about New York. Yeah.
Hmm.
Uh,
It's making me wonder if we need to do a little pairing with Australian wines and New York
We've
cuisine.
done it. We used to do things. I always do.
Yeah.
I like to pair. I like to pair American food because people say, "Oh, Australian lamb." And I was like, that's great, but that's not what the average American's eating. So I was just in
Hmm.
Minneapolis today, and this started from a while ago. I do Grenache because Grenache, what's happening with Grenache in Australia is super cool. And I remember going to a Jewish deli for the first time, eating a pastrami sandwich, going
Ooh.
Grenache. And so I do a Grenache and pastrami sandwich lunches, and all the trade come out going, "This is weird," and then they eat it, and they're like,
It's
"Oh
not.
my
It
god,
doesn't
this is
sound weird.
delicious! It works like a charm." So yeah, it was fun. I did that just this week in there, and I've done it in LA, I've done it in New York, I've done it a few places. It's fun, but those are sorts of things that I think it's about incorporating wine into. Hey, well, what do you eat every day? Not that I eat pastrami sandwiches every day. I'd be the size of a house if I did, but I love them. And
Yes.
you don't get a glass of wine at a Jewish deli very often. In fact, you
Nope.
rarely do. So it's kind
And
of
we
fun.
need to do more pairings like that. I want us to show people that wine is an everyday beverage.
Agreed.
Um, and it's funny that you mentioned as far as how often people drink in America earlier, because I have a huge problem with that narrative where people see it's like we can't have a glass a day, 2 glasses a day. I'm It's not that deep. Now, I get with the misuse of data and telling of specific narratives to fit a certain agenda that has been in motion since the prohibition, right? If we're just going to sweep that really quickly, I don't know if you have any thoughts you want to share on that. I know it's not a fun topic.
Not a fun.
Um, but it's just I believe that in moderation is the answer. And I will also say there have already been evidence from other regions where there's no cell
Plenty.
phones, no, and they're drinking wine every day and they're living to 100, no cancer, life's good.
Yeah, and it's also the narrative for me, and I'll do this quick because I think we should talk about more uplifting things.
Yes.
But the narrative bothers me. It's always there needs to be advocacy for wine because not that I like spirits, I like beer, but wine, spirits, and beer, a shot of wine, a shot of whiskey, a beer, and a glass of wine, all equated to the same thing. We know that's not true. Never
No.
mind that. There are components in wine that are different, but then we also have to address an interesting subject within wine, which is a glass of wine is not a glass of wine. It depends what you. That's like saying
Yes.
a slice of Kraft singles cheese is the same as a slice of the artisanal cheddar from Wisconsin. It's not. What's in
Nope.
it is different. And so being able to look, that brings up ingredient labeling. I mean, a decent glass of wine. I did it with my trainer once. He came, he's like trained. So he said, "Oh, I had this Snoop Dogg red." And I love Snoop Dogg. Don't get me wrong. I love it. But he said, "This is good." And he'd also had a bottle of Barbera the week before. And I said, "Okay, here's the difference. I have the access to it. Snoop Dogg has 26 grams per liter of sugar." And he's like, "What? Didn't taste like it." I said, "No, that's fine. But, that's fine. You got to know that what's in it is different, right?"
Yes.
So we're going to be a bit careful about but we can't get there anyway. I just think there's advocacy for the wine and the lifestyle and how you consume it is very different. And I
Of
think we
course.
need to be talking more about that. And there are health benefits, and they've been clear for decades.
Decades. I mean, what I like to tell people is this, especially for, the Christian folk who are anti alcohol.
That's the scary
The
bit.
Yeah, it makes no sense. But anyway, I digress. So one of the very first, when they built the tabernacle for God, one of the very first items to be sacrificed was wine. So if God can have wine, why can't I? That is my argument. Okay.
Just simple answer. Everyone
Okay.
should. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. All right, so let's go and talk a little bit more about Wine Australia. So you've been with them for 15 years?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's coming up for 16 years. It's certainly not what I thought would happen. I didn't think what would happen, but I knew when I was approached because I was on a panel discussion in Vancouver, and the boss from Wine Australia at the time came up and want to have breakfast with you tomorrow morning. We need to chat. And so he offered me this job. And And at the time I thought, oh, this is cool. And he said, this is going to be a complete career shift for you. And it has been, it's been a career decision. And the reason I've stuck at it for as long as I have is because it's ever changing. There's always something happening, and they've been very good to me. And a lot of it is a bit of like, hey, we know your background, sort of wind you up and let you go. And so they've sort of let me do my thing. Within certain parameters, but they let me do my thing, and getting out there and just sort of connected with people and talking the real story of Australian wine is I don't get bored with it. I love it because what we've got to talk about is so diverse, and there is always something interesting and happening. It's not like, say, hey, do you want to go and talk about one particular thing for the next 15 years? Hey, yeah, that's not going to happen. I would be long gone, but that's not what we have here. So yeah, and so yeah, it's been great. But my primary role is a bit weird in that people, when they first meet me, oh, you're a marketing person. I'm like, technically, I guess, but no, I'm a sommelier. I come from, I do education stuff, and I'm not your average sort of marketing person. I come from a very, very different background. So being able to get out there and connect with effectively a lot of what is my community in the business, to be able to say, hey, look, yeah, I can chat for days with you about Burgundy if you want. We can do that, and I can relate it to what's going on here in Australia. But yeah, I've just never been bored with wine. I've always found it sort of engaging, and that's crazy. It's been 40 years since that.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I think that there's just certain people, I don't know. So I've been in the industry for a little while now. I'm getting seasoned. I'm not super seasoned yet, like yourself, but I'm on my way. And I think that, as I'm getting older, I'm absolutely seeing myself change in this space. I'm trying to embrace it. I'm actually excited to embrace it. And I think that's probably why you've been able to be in this space for 15 years. Wine is always changing, number one. That's something that everyone needs to know. If you're new and you're listening in or watching and you're like, oh, just so much information. Trust me, we will never know everything, but it's the pursuit of that knowledge that we love, right? And it's also the experience with people. Go ahead, talk to me.
You've got to be curious. Period. In life, especially, but you ask questions more so now than ever before. But I do think in wine, if you just remain curious, you'll never be. But there's always something changing. Burgundy was where it started for me. That's what I've got tattooed on my arm. It's a Chambolle. What we said about Burgundy then, elements are similar, but a lot of things have changed, even in a really traditional region like Burgundy. And that's beautiful. How is it? I mean, let's pick on a subject I hated at school: trigonometry. Hated it. Used to argue with my teachers. Point is, that doesn't change. Trigonometry is it. There it is. Or maybe I'm going to get in trouble with a statistician of some sort. But my point is that you learn those formulas and it's unchanged. Wine is not like that at all. And how it's being made and how it's being approached and how it changes the look and feel of like regions and countries, and that's an ongoing evolving thing. And I think Australia's a wonderful lens through which to view that globally, in fact, because we've got this tradition, we've got a history, an unbroken history of fine wine production dating back to that mid 1800s. We didn't have prohibition, we didn't have apartheid or any of that sort of stuff going on. So we've just been making wine for 170 or however many years. And it's changed, but we're not bound by tradition. We can just jump out and go out and experiment with this. And I spent a lot of my career trying to, and I love going, I do a class at Cornell every year for the hospitality. I just did Auburn University. I'm going to the CIA next week.
Come on.
That's my favorite class. CIA Culinary Institute, not the CIA at Virginia.
Of course. Which you do have to say, because the first time I heard that, I was confused. It's like the DMV area. Whenever I say I'm from the DMV and they're like, cars, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, DC, Maryland, and Virginia.
Love it. They're my favorite classes because you've got these bright-eyed, bushy-tailed kids, and they just look at you and go, well, what a weird job, but what a cool job. It's like, I mean, you follow these paths, and I love it. I think, and so my advice to people is, if you're passionate about it and you want to, there's lots of career paths now in wine, which even for me at the time, early days, was not quite so much with a really dedicated sort of focus on wine. So now there's many options and many study programs and what have you, and I like it. So I'm always trying to encourage that, but more often than not, it's like, hey, get out there, follow your passion, and don't be so worried about what am I going to do for the rest of my life. Hey, be gainfully employed, do something interesting, but yeah,
Your
it'll
world's your oyster. I mean, I
all
think that we're cut from the same cloth as that, as far as that is concerned. Because when I first started doing these interviews, that was the point. I wasn't only interviewing wine professionals as far as people who were working in fine dining or winemakers or producers. I interviewed anyone who had connection. Are you in marketing? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
where are your passions, and understand that wine has a space for you. I don't know. When I first started in this industry, that was my mission. I was like, listen, we're wine lovers just like you. And if you want to join us, no matter if you want to drink it or actually work in it, there is space for you.
cool, for sure, for sure. And I think the lovely thing about wine, and then you can apply this to art or sculpture or anything, is that the nice thing about wine is anybody can pick up a glass of wine and go yum or yuck. Just like you can
Mm-hmm.
look at a painting and go, oh, I like those colors, I like this. That can be as far as you go. And that's totally
Mm-hmm.
fine. Yum or yuck. Or you can open the door and find out why that's yum or yuck to you. And then this whole thing is like, it's like a painting. You look at it, you understand what the artist was going through, or what the person was doing in that time of their life, and you go, that painting comes to life.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to, though. It could be just something pretty to look at. Same with wine. It can be just, hey, I'm enjoying this, or wow, I can't believe this. Where's this from? Well, how's it made? And then you meet the people behind it, and then all of a sudden an entire world opens up to you. But
You
it's
know,
still pleasurable without that. That's the nice thing. I think it's more pleasurable when you dig in and get
it
stuff.
is. I mean, if we're being honest, but the truth is, and this is something that I also bring up whenever we talk about this within wine, it's almost like it's like it's a problem how we assess wine. But when you talk about whiskey, when you talk about beer, when you talk about almost any other spirit, you are able to assess it, right? I've gone, so when I first
Mhm.
began
Mhm.
in the industry and was studying wine, my best friend loved beer, right? And she felt that wine was not for her. And I didn't understand why. And she was like, I just don't get it. I don't understand like what you're smelling and what you're getting. And then we go to the bar with her. She's having a beer and she does the exact same thing. And I'm like, so what
Totally.
don't you get? What don't you
Yeah.
get?
It is funny. I think it's how we historically, and I hated it in the beginning. One of the many things I hated about wine in the beginning, or just hated it, was the environment. But because I grew up in an area with a lot of, that's not the case anymore, but stuffy British wine writers that will tell you, well, you'll never quite understand, will you, boy? You're a colonial. And I was like, well, actually, I was born in England, but never mind. I had
Okay.
those kind of conversations, um, but the reality, I think we tend to be a bit stuffy. But that being said, there's time and place for, like, if you and I are geeking out about wine, I think that's great. But if you and I were at a dinner party with a bunch of people, that's not the right time for that to be front and center conversation. Because I had this discussion with a friend of mine, his wife was an architect. She goes, oh, I don't understand all this stuff you do. And I said, look, fair enough, I get it. However, in your business, there's technical stuff that is 100% acceptable to talk about in the right environment. Everyone has it, whether you're learning to play snooker or any sort of sport or anything. There's this weird language, but we shouldn't feel embarrassed in wanting to have our language, but how we use it. It shouldn't be used as a weapon. It should be used as something to bring people in. Or when you're geeking out with your friends, keep it over there with your friends until when your partner's around going, what is wrong with my husband/wife or whatever? I don't know what they're
Hmm.
saying. Time and place.
It's so funny because what you're saying is actually similar to an analogy. So when I was in Italy a few years ago, went to a volleyball game, and after the volleyball game, I'm with Alex, his winemaker, and his girlfriend who's the volleyball player, and she's asking these questions like, I don't understand why you have to know so much in order to enjoy wine. And I said, well, you don't.
You
It's not
don't.
a true statement. And so then I started talking to her about volleyball, right? So, I mean, I've never played volleyball. I don't really know what's going on in the game, right?
I'm
But
too
I'm
short.
still, would you say?
I'm too short to play good volleyball.
Oh my gosh. They wanted me to when I was in high school, and I was just like, I'm in crew. I rode. And so I did all conditioning and stuff, but whatever. But when we were having the conversation, I likened wine to volleyball. And I said, I don't have to know everything when I come into a game. I don't have to dress like you. I don't have to wear your uniform. I don't have to pull my hair back, take off my earrings. I don't even have to know any of the rules of the game. I am able to go watch, pay
Perfect.
attention to what's happening around me and what's happening on the court, Because you see how much I don't know.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
on
yeah.
that's technically a court, right? Okay, I wasn't sure if they called it something else.
I
Anyway,
think we're cool.
court, right?
No,
But my
yeah.
point that I was telling her is what happens? What is my experience? My first time going there, I had a blast because I started to catch on. I'm paying attention, I'm watching, and I'm watching everyone else enjoy the game. So it's giving me even more excitement. What's going to happen the next time I come to a game? Now I'm learning a little bit more. I'm actually able to tell other people what's going on if they're new, still not knowing everything that everyone who's playing the game knows, right? But then I can even go a step further. Now I can look at this team and say, that's my team. I want a jersey. And, like there's a way to
Love it.
There are stages.
Yeah.
And no matter which stage you're in, you should be able to enjoy it. That's the point.
Totally, absolutely, and I think that's a great analogy. It's perfect because all the volleyball becomes more interesting too because you understand it, and you understand what they're saying. What do they mean by set? I don't know what they're talking about, but yeah, 100% get it, and that's the lovely thing about wine. Is what's kept me engaged for such a long time. You don't,
right?
You
Okay, so in your book, The Wines of Australia, right? So obviously, I think we can guess what inspired it, but just give us a quick breakdown of what inspired you to write The Wines of Australia.
Oh, I got approached to write it. I was approached to do this. I go down to Texom, and I've become quite close to the gentleman that runs a thing called Texom, James Tidwell, and he's involved with what was the Classic Wine Library. He just came back to me, along with a couple of other people behind it, a couple of MW, said, "Hey, we think you should write this book on Australian wine." I'm like, "What? I haven't written a book." And they said, "Yeah, but you can." And I'm like, okay, so that was right before COVID. So COVID and then the thing slowed a bit down. So that's sort of landed in my lap. That was, but getting started writing was probably the hardest thing I've done. But once I got on a roll, I was very happy with it. But getting it done, you'd sit down and you go, I'm going to write. And then I'd go clean the fridge and clean the floor. I'd find any reason to get up and not write. And then once I got into it, it was great. So the inspiration was very easy for me. And I actually ended up not writing the front part of the book until the end and went in and started writing about the producers, people I know. And that's where I kind of found, as they say, finding your kind of voice, because I wanted it to sound like me when I speak, for the most part, and it had to. And there are parts in there that are a bit more dry that aren't like that, because where I started is just like, here, I'm reporting on the region, but then I'm going to get to talk about people I know and what's happening, and that sort of like open it up. But to be in what inspired me there is just, it's what exists that inspires me today. The people behind the wines, mostly the Aussie attitude towards wine in general, and just the quality and the sort of understanding of what's happening in the country right now, I think is really, that's inspiring to me on a daily basis. And there's certain producers that literally, this is why I get out of bed every day, because of people like them, or people like this, or people like that, and wines like this. It gets me going. And I'm very lucky to be involved in this, but also lucky to have that land on my doorstep. Plus, it got bought out right after my book got published. Academy du Vin took over Classic Wine Library, which I love, because the very first wine books I ever bought were French classic wines and French fine wines and French country wines by a guy called Stephen Spurrier. That was the first of the Academy du Vin books. I'm like, oh, I'm in the same library as Stephen Spurrier. That would make me feel very, very fine indeed.
And well deserved. I mean, honestly, I told you before before we started our interview, I've already started reading it. I haven't finished it. And obviously I was skipping through because I wanted to be able to like, okay, what does he have in the book though, right? And honestly, I love your approach. I mean, it reads so smoothly. And I think, as you can see, I collect wine books over here, right? And a lot of times I appreciate the very dense books because it's so much knowledge, and because I'm a wine nerd, I can break it down and take it bite by bite, and that's okay. But what I appreciate about your book is that you have all of that dense knowledge, but at the same time, it does read like a conversation. So I'm excited to continue to read it. Obviously I'll tell you for sure if that's how I felt about the entire book. But so far, the little pieces that I've been reading, I'm just like, yeah. For example, on page 58.
What the heck did I say on page 58? Go ahead.
Do old vines make better wine?
It's a great question, and it's wonderful because in my role with Wine Australia, now, so you've got to remember that Australia has the largest collection of pre-phylloxera old vines anywhere on the planet, because of how vines were collected, the massive collections that happened in the mid 1800s. We won't go into too much detail. They get to Australia, the cuttings are made, they're planted, and that was 3 decades before phylloxera came in Europe. So it's way
Right.
before phylloxera, and we haven't had phylloxera in the vast majority of Australia. So now we have this repository of phenomenal old vines. Now, I've been promoting that since I've been 15 years in this role, because what a great story. But then in the end, the next question has to be, well, that's great, so what? Do they
Right.
make better wines? So now what we can do, there was anecdotal stuff that sort of indicated and pushed it, and you talked about, yes, but the tannins are this and that, but there was no sort of kind of concrete evidence. And even if it's not 100% concrete yet, we have a much better understanding. This gentleman called Dylan Grigg did his PhD in old vines, and I loved it. I spent a couple hours walking around his vineyards with him. He was in Spain, he was in Portugal, he was all over the place, and he said, in old vines, what he found, what they found is, and what he said is 50 and beyond, this is where they noticed this. And he said I'm not qualified to explain epigenetic modification necessarily. He said
I
epigenetic.
mean, will we listen and understand if you did? I don't think so. So speak our language.
It'd be great if you got insomnia, put you to sleep. But the point is, it's the simple piece is that epigenetic modification, the plants bookmark weather events, and they set up for those in the future. So the point is that after a period of time, they can go, oh, here's what happened. The plant, it senses that drop in atmospheric pressure or water stress or whatever it is, and it adjusts so that year in, year out, you're going to get arguably, and that's what I said to Dylan. So we can say better wines. There's a winemaker that has to make the wine, but better fruit, no question, side by side with young vine, you are going to get consistently better fruit through the vagaries of weird climate and weather events, which is what's happening now with climate change. It's more about dramatic weather events. The old vines chug along and they're used to it. It's to your point about, hey, wisdom sometimes counts.
Yes. Okay. You said it, you knew I was going to say it, right?
I have to say that at my age, right?
I mean, but we need to say it. I have a problem. I have a problem with my generation and younger not having reverence for the people who came before us. It doesn't make any sense to me. I'm being honest with you. I've had this conversation with my mother. I've even had this conversation with my great aunt where I'm telling them, I need your insight. I need your advice. I need your wisdom. As much as I want to believe that I could figure it out all on my own, that's literally why we have generations. That's why we have books. That's why we write down history. That's why we have testimony. Like we have to share so that the next generation is better off, but the next generation has to be willing to listen, and also vice versa. I have to say that because
and opinions,
we're in the wine industry.
Opinions have to, what's the lovely line? Opinions are like, opinions are like assholes. The Aussie comedian says that both need to be examined from time to time. And
you are hilarious. I have never heard that before, and
that's not mine. I wish it was mine, but it's not mine. But the point is, it's so true. All jokes aside, it's so true. It's like I love people's opinions, but they're so much more impactful for me is if you've like, hey, you've got this thing. It's easy to come up with an opinion. If it's backed up by a bit of like knowledge and wisdom and time and research and I'm listening. I'm not listening. We're just throwing out. Old wines are crap, or Burgundy's rubbish, or this. It's like, no, that's easy to say. Spend time, but no, I'm with you on that. It does count, but I also like youthful enthusiasm as well. I like that sort of energy that comes with that. But I used to tell my students, I taught classes for years, and saying, your best thing you can do as a wine professional, you've done these wonderful courses, be a sponge for a few years, ask questions, don't venture opinion, ask questions. Formulate things, because you've learned little knowledge is a dangerous thing sometimes, but this is the wine journey is a long staircase. Just ask questions all the way along and you're in good shape.
So my last point of conversation, and I just want to give a quick shout out again to our sponsor, Wine Australia. Woot, woot, woot. Okay, that's the jingle. I don't know if you knew, like but that's the jingle. Wine Australia. Woot, woot, woot. All right. But another reason why I am absolutely loving your book so far, I skipped to the end for the juicy, for the helpful, for the necessary appendix of 101 wines. Can you talk us through?
Yes. Okay. So I did that. That was not the plan. And actually one of the reviews I got saying, hey, I'm not used to this being in part of the series, but I kind of like it. And I didn't do it with the intent people might think. I did not start out like, as I'm doing that, and also in my job, I realized that people just don't understand the diversity that exists in Australia. So my thought was, as I was writing the book and I'm going through bits and pieces, I'm going to make sure people understand things within things, but also is that, you know, if you were to have access to, and some of the wines are not that easy to come by, but some of them are, absolutely, a lot of them exist in the States. If you were to try these wines, these 101 wines, over the next however long, you'll get it. If you don't, you're dead from the waist up. But the point is, if you get through those wines, you'll get it. And I love doing it because it made me really think. And then, you know, there's 12 Shiraz in there. So you need to understand Shiraz is just one thing. It's like, but people don't understand Shiraz. I love Riesling, and you've got a, you know, Riesling behind there, but there's more to Riesling in Australia than just Clare and Eden, and they're wonderful benchmark wines. There's 9 Rieslings in there. There's half a dozen Chardonnays, and then there's these quirky, fun little things where you go, yeah, you know what? If I had access to these 100 wines, guess what? I would never be bored.
Come on.
That's cool. That's cool. That's why I did it, and it was, but it could have been. I was not. I got to the end. I wasn't counting. I legitimately wasn't counting. It could have been 47. It could have been 81, and I got to the end and it was 100. And I'm like, nope, I'm going to find one more.
One more. Well, okay. Number one, thank you so much for joining me today. You have been an absolute pleasure. Do you know that you're like a fun guy?
Yeah, it depends on the day, but yeah, but by and large, I think.
I got you on a good day. Okay, so when I come see you, because where are you located?
I'm in Des Moines, Iowa. But we're going to see each other in DC because you're coming to our event at the Australian Embassy. It's all fancy pants Australian Embassy. So we're doing a seminar, which you'll meet some very cool winemakers. You and I will actually meet in person, which is great. And then you'll be able to walk around and see different producers, different wine styles, and get a better understanding of. I know you've got a pretty good understanding of Australia now, but no. So I'll see you in DC.
After I read your book, I'll know everything. What are you talking about?
You'll know everything. That's it. You can, you can go focus on somewhere else because you'll know Australia inside and out. It's
okay. As I've learned from you, I'll never know everything. Everything's changing.
No, that's the beautiful thing about wine. You never know everything. There's always something to know. The whole thing, I was in the Master of Wine program for a period of time, but you could joke about it because I actually passed the tasting, which I was really proud of. But the reality is, do you ever master wine?
No. I've come to terms. I don't, but I mean, we could talk about that all day because we're wine nerds and we love wine information. And so I'm always in the pursuit. One day I want to be, you know, one of the most knowledgeable people, but I feel like I got to find a niche. I need to find something specific within wine. And that's where I have a hard time. I'm like you. I love
truffles.
Wine. Yeah. I need to find, yes. Need to focus on my truffles, what pairs with my truffles, and then let that be my focus. I love that.
There you go.
Okay. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. We love you. Tasting Thursday. So you guys, we're here. We're all on YouTube, right? But we will be everywhere else. So make sure you check us out on Instagram, TikTok at the Millennial Somm. But where can we find you?
Me?
You.
On Instagram. I'm on Instagram. I'm not on Twitter anymore, but on Instagram at VintageMD. That's me. Mostly I post pictures of my wife and my family, bottles of wine, and my very high maintenance dog.
Oh my gosh. The dogs live luxurious lives. Okay.
That's what I want to be. I want to be in his.
Yes.
I want to be in his thing.
Legs up.
Vintage Mark Davo. I got it wrong.
What'd you say?
My wife's like, you're not Vintage MD, you're Vintage Mark Davo.
Okay. No matter what, I'm going to have it in the description. So don't you guys worry. You'll be able to click easy access. And where can we purchase the wine?
So you can purchase directly from Academy de Vin in England, but it's on Amazon.
Okay. I was going to say, I was like, should I say Amazon? I didn't want to say, and it wasn't.
No,
okay.
Amazon.
Amazon. All right. So everything you'll sign it?
Not signed, is it?
No. It's okay. I'll bring my book when I see you in May. Oh, and we have to talk about that too. Hello. We kind of brushed over the North American Roadshow. Can you just give us a quick breakdown of what?
Yeah, we're going around to different cities around North America, which does include Canada, and that does in May. Every May we're going to be doing something, but we're in DC, May 13th. That's where I'm going to see you. And then we're up in Canada, we're in Toronto and in Montreal. And then we're going to be out and about over the next few years in various places you can catch us. So Nashville, Boston. I'm in Boston this weekend at the Boston Wine Expo doing an Aussie seminar. Then I'm going from there via a couple of days fly fishing in Massachusetts. I'm going to the CIA. I'm going to drive there. And that's at the Culinary Institute of America, which is awesome. So, but the roadshow, very cool, very excited. And we're at the embassy, and the embassy's been redone, and it's a big, beautiful, fancy place. And it's going to be a really, really fun day.
Absolutely.
May 13th.
May 13th, and information will be again in the description below so that you can learn a little bit more. And then, of course, you guys, I love you. I will see you. Okay, thank you for tuning in for Tasting Thursday. Can you sing it to me? Give me one Tasting Thursday. Let me hear it.
I can't. I have the worst voice. The only time.
Oh, I want to hear it. I'm ready. Ready to do it together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, Tasting Thursday.
Tasting Thursday. I got a little baritone.
It's beautiful. I love it. All right, you guys. I love you so much, and I will catch you next time.